Looks like everybody's attended one of these before. That's awesome. Really appreciate everybody coming in and attending these again. That we have stuff that comes out all the time, and so these are really good opportunities for everybody to see new features and how to utilize those. So really appreciate everybody coming in. Tyler, welcome. Ulster County Sheriff's Office. That's fantastic. Like I said, guys, we'll get started. John, I didn't realize this was your first meeting, John. Awesome. That is fantastic. So today we're going to be talking about mission planning, mapping, things of that nature. So we're going to cover how to utilize the autonomous missions inside of DroneSense, how to set those up and what that looks like. I would put the drone in the air and show you what it's going to look like in real life, but it is a monsooning outside right now, which you could probably see some of the wet on me. It just came back inside. So there's going to be a little bit of, I'm going to walk you all the way up until when the drone would take off. But we'll still get to go through everything. We'll chat about how to set up those mission plans and things of that nature so that you will have a good understanding of, in the event that you need to be able to send a drone up for any kind of mapping mission, whether you're doing a crash crime scene reconstruction or you're doing a disaster mapping, things of that nature. You'll have a good understanding of how to do that in our software, regardless of what type of mission you're doing, whether it is a crash crime scene reconstruction or otherwise. So that's going to be the plan today. As always, guys, if you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat throughout the meeting here. You should have the ability to raise your hand as well. I just want to make sure that y'all have the ability to do that. So if I'm just rambling along and I just happen to not to miss that opportunity for a question that you post, please raise your hand and it'll jog me to take a look at that. Looks like I've got 36 people in here, so really fantastic. Great show out, guys. Again, really appreciate y'all's time. A little bit of background on who I am. For those who don't know me, my name is Brandon Karr. I started the Pearland Police Department drone program down here in South Houston. We started out with patrol operations, and then we integrated it into every aspect of law enforcement, from patrol operations for search and person, search and rescue, to crash crime scene reconstruction, utilizing DroneSense for all of those mapping missions. We integrated it into SWAT operations, community events, and last but not least, drone as first responder. I'm an internationally recognized subject matter expert for UAS operations for law enforcement application disaster response. I'm an executive board member and public information officer and law enforcement lead for Law Enforcement Drone Association, and a myriad of other things. So happy to answer any questions that you may have. I still do this in application. I'm on the HSI SRT team. I'm a TFO for them. I'm also the aviation coordinator for Galveston County Sheriff's Office down here in Texas. So I still do a lot of application stuff. I still fly for law enforcement operations, disaster response, major incidents. But my full-time job now is with DroneSense. I'm the solutions engineer team lead currently. Got some future stuff in the mix here in the very near future that I'm super excited about. But just wanted to give y'all some information about who I am. A lot of people in this meeting know me. For those, again, if y'all have never met me or don't know who I am, I'm a first responder first. I will be happy to answer any questions that y'all have at any point in time about anything, whether it's drones, software, case law, application, tactics, whatever. I'll give you an unbiased opinion, not only on our software, but also on multiple other softwares or multiple other hardware, things of that nature. So I want to share my contact information with everybody. I want to get that out of the way first. So I'm going to share my screen there. So this is my contact card. This is my email here. That will take you directly to my email. It's an easy way to get a hold of me. Also, this is my personal cell phone number. It goes to this cell phone right here. if you have questions at any point in time, day or night, do not hesitate to reach out, ask the questions. Again, I want to make sure you got all your questions answered. I want to make sure that you're able to do your job in the field, more than anything else on the planet. Like I know drones save lives. So please use me and abuse me. There's a lot of people in this meeting that do. So be more than happy to answer any questions that y'all have as we start working together. So just wanted to get that out of the way. So I'll leave that up for a little bit longer. And again, please don't ever hesitate to reach out if y'all ever have anything. Okay. Michael Mills, and sorry if I butcher your name, but Mike Soto with Madison County, New York. Welcome. I really appreciate y'all joining. Fantastic to have y'all here. All right. I see a couple of those contact cards coming through. When you scan the QR code, it goes to a contact card with me. You get all of my data, LinkedIn, Facebook, everything. So awesome. So from here, we're going to dive into the software here. We're going to talk about all of the different mapping features and things of that nature and how they apply. Out of curiosity, in the chat, if y'all don't mind, how many people are utilizing DroneSense today for mapping missions? Like whether it's disaster response or crash crime scene reconstruction, search and rescue operations, like how many people are using it today? Awesome. Really good. Fantastic. Awesome. So we may do a little bit of feedback as well. We got 40 people in the meeting here. So what I may do towards the end, after we talk through a lot of this, I may open up the ability to talk in here so that y'all can ask questions and stuff like that. Do some deep dive, get some feedback as well on things that we may be able to do better with our our application. So really good. Trying to get up and run and do so currently. Megan, that doing it for crash crime scene reconstruction forensics really helped streamline a lot of processes with Pearland where we first started utilizing it. So yeah, it's definitely a game changer. There's some places, obviously, especially when it comes to crime scenes specifically, that photogrammetry with drones it's just not the right tool. But in a lot of applications it is. So definitely some really good applications there to be able to utilize it for that. Awesome. So there's quite a bit of few people that commented in here that y'all are utilizing, but there's also quite a bit of people who didn't, right? So I've noticed that there's a lot of agencies that aren't utilizing drone mapping for their crash crime scene reconstructions, disaster mapping, pre-ops for SWAT, pre-op for community events, right? There's a lot of ways that you can leverage mapping. The biggest things that I've utilized it for in terms of mapping is crash crime scene reconstruction. That's the #1 response for mapping that I've utilized it for in the past. The next one would probably be community events or disaster mapping because we get hit with a hurricane every year. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use these. In Texas, we had the Uvalde shooting right before I left Pearland. We had the Uvalde shooting, right? And one of the biggest taskings that we had with the city was they wanted us to map every single school, right? And so that they knew where ingress egress would be for every single school, because every single year they're adding on, they're retracting from schools, and they just didn't have a really good updated map for all of our footprint across all of our schools. So what we started doing was we utilized Faro scanners and the MSN hover map scanner, LiDAR scanner to map interior, and then we used drones to map the exterior, and then we merged it all together. So we had a 3D model of every single one of our schools. That was a massive undertaking. We're a fairly large city. We have a lot of schools. But that's another really good example as to how you can use drones to map so that way you can have better data for your TAC teams so that they can come up with better operation plan. They can come up with better pre-op planning for major incidents, whether it is an active shooter, a fire response, or disaster response, right? But again, a lot of different ways to skin the cat, a lot of different ways to utilize mapping and autonomy for a lot of the different operations, whether it's a specific law enforcement function or if it is a OEM function or a fire EMS function. So lots of different applications you can utilize this for. Mapping, in my opinion, is a lot of fun. I like having fun with that. One of the things that I started doing in all of my scenes is I would, whenever I mapped out that crash scene as an Easter egg, I would map myself and put it somewhere in there. So that was always kind of fun to have myself in the models. But it's stuff like that that I ended up having a lot of fun doing. And again, like utilizing the DroneSense software, it allows you to be able to do that very, very easily in one nice place. So we're going to talk about how to do that. So I'm going to get over into DroneSense. I'm utilizing our share screen function to be able to bring in those feeds. So let me do that. Bring it up. Come on, internet. Let's cycle it. Might have just let it sit for a little bit too long. Huh? All right, so let me go full screen with this little guy. And again, please ask questions. If y'all have any, raise your hand. Give me some kind of notification that y'all have a question. Drop it in the chat there, and we'll be happy to. I'll make sure that I'll take a look at it. We also have the Q&A function as well. So if you want to drop a question in the Q&A, that's also there for you. Okay. So to get into the autonomous mapping missions, we have a lot of different ones to choose from, right? So if you're in the application and you come up to the map function, in the top left-hand corner up here, we have what we call the hamburger. If I were to click on that, that will bring up all of the different actions. So we have waypoint missions where if you want to tell the drone, I want you to go along this specific route, you can set where those points are. We'll show you how to do that today. We have orbit or points of interest where you can tell it, I want you to fly in a set radius at a set altitude at a set speed and fly in orbit watching a very specific point of interest. We have survey, which is where most of your crash crime scene reconstruction operations will take place. We'll talk deep about that. And then we also have a lot of search and rescue autonomous missions for mission planning. So imagine you had a search and rescue event or a missing person. These different mission sets for sector search, line search, and parallel search are all functions that are optimized for search and rescue operations. So those are all in there for you. You can find each one of those. It makes it really easy to get into that if you're in the map mode. If you're in this mode for the main camera view, you'll notice that the flight planning goes away. So always make sure that you're in the map mission for those actions to come up. So that's one issue that I've noticed a couple people put in a ticket. Like, I have no idea how to get into the waypoint mission, or I can't do the sector search, right? Make sure you have the map mode up so that all of those populate nice and quick. We also do have the ability to change different functions inside of the setup. So if you aren't connected to a drone and you want to build this out before you go out into the field, one of those applications would be like a disaster response, right? Where you don't have cellular connectivity with a map, or you don't have the ability to bring down data, things of that nature. Doing the setup when you have data early can really help with a long way. And you don't have to be fully connected to the drone to do this. You can select all of our supported aircraft in the drop down there. It makes it super, super simple to be able to build out that mission plan. And I have used this in the past. So if if you go to LEDA events or Law Enforcement Drone Associate events, I have a twin called Herbert Ubry. He was the second pilot that we brought on with Pearland. One of the incidents that I like to highlight is we had an incident where in the early days where we had an officer involved shooting. I was on an active structure burn that was very hot. And then he got sent to the OIS, but he didn't know how to build out mapping missions yet. And so what he asked me to do, he's like, hey, I need you to build this for me, and then I'll bring it down and fly it over here. And so what I had to do was I had to build it out and then save it to our cloud. And then all he had to do is download it and then fly it. So even if you don't know, you have a pilot who doesn't know how to do this yet, this is a really good way of building those out, saving them, sending them to your pilot, and then they can bring it down and do it in the field, even if they don't have any idea how to do it. So keep this in your back pocket. You don't have to be connected to the aircraft. You can just build it, save it to the cloud, and then they can bring it down wherever they are. So you would select your aircraft, whichever one it is. Coming on down, you would select which camera payload you want to utilize. So default is going to be the wide camera specifically for the M30T. But if, let's say you want to get a thermal map for a wildfire burn and you're looking for hot spots, all right, like you can tell it, I want you to use the thermal. Coming on down, you can select the resolution. For the thermal sensor on this one, there's only one resolution, but there are different resolution settings for different types of aircraft. So if you want to fine tune that for the mapping mission you're doing, you do have the ability to do that. Okay. Coming back over to actions, let's talk through a few of these. So here we have the Waypoint mission. I'm going to move this. Here we have the Waypoint mission. So all I did was I selected waypoints, right? So you would select whichever autonomous mission you want. From there in the map, you have the ability to set different information here. So we have the speed and the altitude. You can set whichever altitude you want. It's important to note that we do go very high. And the reason being, you were like, well, drones are only allowed to go to 400 feet. Well, not everybody has those restrictions. A great example of that, I don't know if he's in this meeting or not. It doesn't look like it. But we do have some customers that do have airspace authorizations to fly a whole lot higher. Like prime example, Jeff Pritcher up in the Pacific Northwest, he's got an airspace authorization up to 1,000 feet. And if you have a wildfire burn, which is typically what he's flying for, or a disaster response, you can set up a TFR and fly very, very high. And we don't want to limit that for you in the event that you do have those airspace authorizations. So if you want to fly higher, you do have the ability to do that. Just pay attention to those altitudes when you are building out your missions here. So from here, you have the ability to drop a marker. So all I did was touch the map as to where I want this first location to be. You do have the ability, if you are working with a small screen, not like an M30 like I have here, or you're flying like a Mavic, you can at this point you hit the X up here to give yourself the full map to go and do whatever you need to do inside of each one of these missions. So you can move around where that first waypoint would be. If you need to get back into the settings, you can do that. Scrolling on down, you'll notice that we have in waypoint action, I want you to go to the next plan item. So what I would do is I would hit add to plan, and you'll notice it creates that mission in here now, right? I also have the ability to come back in and edit that at any point in time if this isn't exactly what I want, right? So all I need to do is just come back in and edit, and then I can continue to add different points. I can continue to update different actions. If that's not exactly where I want it, we have the ability to do that as well. All right. Any questions so far? Just want to give a little bit of a pause. We do have a question in the Q&A. Is there a plan to allow creating an autonomous flight plan in web to load the aircraft at a later time? Yes, Toner, that's a fantastic question. It's a huge feature request. That is something that has been brought up many times. DroneSense actually used to have it a long time ago, where you could build out those missions in web, push them to the cloud, and then somebody could bring it back down. Our web team is working on that. However, there's other higher priority items that are in between now and then. But it is a high priority item for us. Yeah. Sean, I knew that you were going to say it. You brought it up yesterday or a couple days ago. Any other questions, comments, concerns on that? Okay. Awesome. Once if you'll notice when if I were to come back into here, you'll notice that there's add plan in here or update action. Once I update action or add to plan, what'll happen is it'll take you to this next phase where we had actions, which is where we built out all of the settings for that, add, drop the markers and stuff like that. Once I hit update action or add to plan, it'll bring you to the flight plan setting here. Here you have some options to be able to go in and go back and edit that field again. You also have the ability to save it for a later date. So if you'll notice, we have reorder, clear it if I want to delete it, save it, or load it. If I were to save it, this is where it has the ability to push that flight plane up to our cloud, and then anybody flying in the mission can bring down that flight plane. So for example, I can name it anything I want, the incident number, the case number, what have you, or I can come in and load different flight plans, and they'll eventually populate once it pulls them all down from our cloud. But that's where you have the ability to save that information and bring it down in the future. There they are. So for example, like David Sprague says 17 ARAP, that's a Waypoint mission. If I wanted to come in and bring that one down, I can click on it, confirm, and here's that map mission that he brought in. I'm going to zoom to it. It's pulling it up from where my aircraft is, which is why you have that line from Texas. But as you can see, he's got a mission that I brought in for a 3D grid. So you can bring in those missions from anywhere. Anybody can save them, build them out. But unfortunately, to Sean's point, as well as Toner's point, those currently are only accessible on the remote or an iPad, things of that nature. Any other questions? Waypoint, before we jump to the next one. I highly recommend you play with that. There's a lot of really good benefits to a Waypoint mission. In the past, I used Waypoint mission quite a bit for search and rescue operations. If I wanted to follow a very specific trail, or if I wanted to follow a water line for a pond, that made it really easy to be able to build that out. But we also have newer search and rescue stuff. So Waypoint missions, in my opinion, and that's just my opinion, isn't quite the optimized solution for search and rescue operations anymore. The search and rescue patterns that we have built into there are more optimized for that kind of stuff. Okay. Yeah, and to Sean's point, again, you can do it on an iPad. It's anything that has a DroneSense application, you can build it out on that. So like for me and my phone, utilizing the application that we have for that, I can put it on my big old phone that I have here, using superior Android devices. Coming over to the next one, orbits. So if I were to snap to my location, there we are, and I were to click on orbit, again, you're going to select the action, just like always, and then you're going to set your different information. So I can click on the map, and then that will start where the point will start. And you can see we have the orbit is already placed around my aircraft. My initial altitude is 150 feet. If I were to adjust that, right, go big on it, you'll notice the radius doesn't change. However, if I wanted to make the radius bigger or smaller, I can do that on the map. I also can do it on the roller here. So a couple of different options available to you at your fingertips. You also can adjust speed. You have the ability to do drone heading if you want it to do like a crash crime scene reconstruction, and this is my focal point for where the vehicle's final rest is. I can take my aircraft or my remote, place it exactly where I want it to look, build out this flight plan, tell it drone heading center, and do a clockwise or counterclockwise for rotation, it doesn't matter, and turn on take photos. Now I have an automatic flight plan specifically designed for that final rest, right? So it makes it super simple to be able to build those out. Yes, you can. David, that's a fantastic question about the specific grid point of interest. We'll talk about the grids here in a little bit when we get into the grids, because there's two different ways you can do a grid. You can either do the survey grid or you can do the grid search. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Great question. Great question. Okay, so let's say that I built those out. I wanted to take photos because I'm doing an inspection. I want to make sure that I get the angle right. It's important to note, guys, that this is building. This isn't in the air, right? And the altitudes are going to dictate your gimbal angle. So just a word of caution when you're building this stuff out. If you know the gimbal angle, then fantastic. But in my experience, once I get it to altitude, at altitude I want it to be at, especially for crash crime scene reconstruction, I notice like the gimbal I have to mess with a little bit to fill the frame. So you do have the ability to pause that flight plan, make the adjustment, and tell it to go again once you get to altitude if the predetermined altitude here in the gimbal angle isn't right. Does that make sense? Everybody tracking that? Trailer? Good to see you, buddy. Awesome. So again, just like with the Waypoint mission, once you have it built, all you're going to do is you're going to click add to plan. Now, one thing that I want to highlight here, once you add to plan, again, you can save it, push it to the cloud, so you can do it over and over and over again, or you can give it to somebody else to bring down. Especially when it comes to crash crime scene reconstructions, if it's a bad weather day, right? Like the fog is too bad, it's not a legal flight, and you can't call SGI for whatever reason. And you want to build out that flight plan while you're in the field downrange at night, bad weather. You could do that, save it all, bring it down, go to the next day whenever it's nice and pretty, load it, fly it, right? It makes it super simple for you to be able to do that. But one thing that I want to highlight is once you are ready, you have the flight plan set, you're ready to rock and roll. You do not have to save it to fly it. Same thing with the Waypoint mission and all of our other missions. Saving it is just for another rainy day. Okay. Once you hit the play button, it will bring up the request for go now. I'm going to zoom out. I hit the play button, you'll see cancel or you'll hit go now. When you hit go now, the drone's going to take off. I'm not going to do that because that's how you smoke an M30. But if I was outside and it was a nice day out, I would hit go now. The drone would take off to all of the predetermined stuff for the Waypoint mission, the orbit mission, all of that stuff. It'll automatically go and start doing the things. Where we have the play button here, when it's in the air, this also changes over to a stop button. If you need to pause it at any point in time, you can do that. So that capability is there for you as well. Any questions on the workflow to how to get it in the air and get it going? Good. Sweet. All right. Coming on back. I'm gonna clear that, get rid of this, and we'll move to the next one. Survey. So this one's near and dear to my heart. I have used this more times than I can possibly count. This is what I do. All of my disaster response, my crash crime scene reconstructions, all of this is done utilizing Survey. So all I did was I clicked on Survey. I dropped the mission on the map. Now you'll notice that we have this orange border here, and we have can you edit flight plans mid-flight? No, you can't edit flight plans mid-flight. You have to create a new flight plan. Now you can stop it, and then it goes into hover mode, and then you can click edit, and then you can make your adjustments, update plan, and then you have to re-push it, but it's the same workflow as if it was a completely new flight plan. Great questions. You don't have to land again. So yes and no to answer your question, Christopher. Yes and no. The workflow is almost like making a whole new plan though. Yeah. Any other questions? Great question, Chris. If the unit is flying in the flight plan and you want to mark something to investigate later or send other assets, that's going to be that drop mission marker icon that we have there, and I can talk about that at the end. Great question, John. But we do have the ability to drop markers while it's in flight. You can do that while it's in autonomous mode. So like, especially when we get into the search and rescue tracks, right? Like I'm going to run a search and rescue op and I'm going to drop all these markers as it's flying so I can send ground teams in to validate, right? So there's definitely a way to do that, and we'll show you how to do that here in a bit. Great questions. Oh, thinking outside the box. I like it. All right. So when it comes to dropping a survey mission for like a crash crime scene reconstruction or a disaster mapping, things of that nature, there's a lot of different ways to skin this cat. So when you drop the map marker, what I like to do is I like to kill this box because, again, you may be working with a small screen. So I like to clean it up. From here, you have the ability to move stuff around. So in the top left-hand corner, right-hand corner, like each corner of the box, you'll see this orange marker with arrows. I can grab this guy and make a polygon, and you'll notice the flight plan will automatically change. The white box with a plus sign is adding in a leg. So if I click on that, you'll notice that it cycles, and now I can change the leg, right? It makes it really easy to be able to do that. And you'll also notice that the flight plan will automatically adjust. The blue is going to be your flight trajectory. The white dots is going to be where it will take a photo. Okay. So you can make this out to be whatever you would like. And as you can see, it can make all kinds of different missions for whatever it is. So once you built out how you want it to look, you can come back in, and this is where we have a lot of different settings. So here you can see that we're flying at 10 miles an hour. You can see we have an altitude of 150 feet. Total flight time is looking to be 9 minutes and 3 seconds. Our ground sampling distance, or our GSD, is currently set at 2.7 inches per pixel, which is what we've done the math on specifically for the M30 in wide camera mode. We have our front and side overlap is defaulted to 75/60. This is okay for disaster response. If you're doing crash crime scene reconstruction, you're going to want that to be at minimum 80 and 70. 80% front overlap, 70% side overlap. For my guys, when I do training for my agencies, I tell them to do 90/90. That is a personal preference. But as somebody who does a lot of data processing and has people going out into the field to map and bring me the data, I can't make data from nothing. So I always want to go too much data because I can eliminate data if I need to, but I can't make data from nothing. So personally, for crash crime scene reconstructions, I like 90/90. The minimum for Pix4D and DJI Terra, you're looking at 80/70. Apologize. We also have the default gimbal angle at 90 or nadir, specifically for this mapping mission. Now, if you're wanting to do a 2D reconstruction, then you're going to want 90. If you're doing a 3D reconstruction, you're going to want to adjust that guy up a little bit to about 60 degrees, 70 degrees. Okay. We do have presets built into here as well. So if I were to click the drop down, we have Pix4D React, which is designed in for that. If I were to click 3D Ortho, you'll notice that it will automatically adjust for a 3D grid, which is also really nice. It also adjusts the gimbal angle to 55 degrees. Again, my personal preference is about 60 degrees, but it's also going to depend on how high you're flying. Okay. Coming on down, you can fine tune all kinds of stuff. Again, if you make any adjustments in here, you'll notice the flight plan will automatically adjust as well for you. So I bumped it up to 855 feet just because to show you that it will automatically adjust. You'll also notice that the ground sampling distance will automatically adjust. If you change anything in here for the ground sampling distance, it'll automatically adjust the altitude as well as all the math. So like for this one, if I wanted a ground sampling distance of 1.5 inches per pixel, that's a 30-minute flight time and a whole lot of images. Okay. Coming on down, you can adjust the gimbal angle as well. I'm going to hit overlaps right here. And this is where you can make those adjustments on the overlaps. So like for me, specifically, if I were to do 80/70, right, get to 70 there, and then bump this guy up to 80. There we are. You'll notice that the flight plan automatically adjusts as well. Something else that you can do is you can tell it to just not take photos. So if I were to turn that off, you'll notice all the white dots go away. For the, just like if I was wanting to do just a 3D grid mission for search and rescue for whatever reason, or if you want to record video, you could do it that way too. You also have the ability to turn on or off 3D mode in here. That's in there for you as well. And this is the last thing that I want to really highlight. Let me clean this up a little bit to really show it. Is we do have a default in here for auto where it'll make the optimized flight plan for this, but let's say that this is not what I like. Let's say that I want it to do the opposite direction. If you turn off auto mode, you'll have survey angle and you'll notice it automatically changed. But if I were to start to drag this guy, you'll notice that it starts to spin that scene, right? So you can change the way that the drone's going to fly in the interest of roadways or in the interest of buildings and stuff of that nature. This makes it really easy to adjust that. And I have had to adjust that in the field on a few occasions, just due to the operational environment that I was flying. Again, once you're ready, add to plan, hit the play button. You'll get to choose a leg to start to fly on. It's important to note whenever you choose the leg to start on, it will fly to that and it'll start right there. So like, let's say that I don't want this line for whatever reason. I want it to start here and start on this line. I can tell it to do that. If you run out of battery and you're doing great battery management, you may want it to, like, let's say it stops like right here and you want to redo the leg for whatever reason, you can do that. But DroneSense will pick up where you left off if you stop mid-mission in a flight for a recon. Okay. Chris asked a great question. Will DroneSense adjust speed for the light based on lighting conditions and the drone, or can you program it to stop and take pictures for low light situations? Currently, no. Currently, we do not have like what Pix4D Capture calls like safe mode, where it'll just fly, stop, fly, stop, fly, stop. And I'll be honest with you, even Pix4D Capture is not great. The best automatic mapping solution I've seen for low light incidents is the latest and greatest out of DJI for what they call smart image. That one does really well. But we have not built that out inside of our system. I honestly don't even know if it's in the software development kit that we could code to. But that's a great call out. It's something that is near and dear to my heart as somebody who has done a lot of night mapping missions. Those are flown manually, typically by me, either in video mode. If you're using Pix4D Mapper, you can do it that way in video. If you're using Matic, it has to be photos only. So at those, you would have to fly that manually. But what I have done is I build out this mapping mission. You can save it just as you have it, and then just fly directly on top so that way you make sure that you have the proper overlap. The camera settings can auto adjust if you have it set to do that, or you can put the camera settings in manual mode prior to telling it to go, and then you can set the lighting missions prior to in manual mode. Great questions. Those are really good ones. Somebody does mapping. Awesome. So I'm going to cancel that guy. And I'm going to clear this flight plan and we'll keep on moving. Coming on down, the next one is going to be sector searches. This was specifically designed for search and rescue tactics. There was a big study that was done by the Norwegian Police Department that tested this search pattern specifically. It also is replicated with search and rescue tactics with the Coast Guard for aviation as well as marine operations. It's also highly recommended with lost person behavior. So there's a lot of different things that reinforce why we built out the way we did with the sector search. Just like with orbits and things of that nature, you'll have the ability to adjust the altitude and the radius of this right on your map here. If you want to go higher or lower, you have the ability to do that. It will automatically adjust the radius specifically for the altitude you're flying to optimize that radius. You also have the ability to set the speed and the gimbal angles for those. Again, if you want to take photos, you have the ability to do that. Okay. Very similar to orbits. But what will happen is the aircraft will fly in a pinwheel pattern for the sector search to get multiple different angles so that you can really optimize utilizing your drone for search and rescue operations. Okay. Same thing, add to plan, hit play, go now, drone will take off, go do its thing. Coming on down, we have line search. So this one's really good for it. Imagine that we had a suspect search, right? Like we have a suspect that was last seen in my subdivision, and he is jumping fences, right? And I want to go through and I want to make sure that I search the backyards of both of these locations. So this makes it super simple to be able to do that. All I need to do is make the adjustments so that that line is right on my backyards. So I can check all of those backyards along that flight plan. Dadgummit. Hit the plus button on accident. Let me clear that. Cancel, line search, drop, make it big. There we are. And there we are. So you have the ability to just drop those in. So again, with the blue line, that's going to be the track that the aircraft takes. Thank you so much, David, for dropping the study. That is a fantastic study, by the way. If you need some good bathroom reading time, it's perfect. It's very good, well written by Andreas. I got to proofread it before they published it, and their findings were exactly in line with my findings doing this in real world. I can vouch for the study. I strongly recommend everybody take a look at it. It's fantastic. So again, with the line search, you have the ability to set the speed. You can set the altitudes. So like, for example, for my aircraft, I'm going to want to fly lower. For my happy place is right at about 250 to 300 feet. So I can drop that guy down to whatever altitude I want. But what's also really nice is the width of the line there. So like if I were to bump this guy up, you'll notice, there we are. And then all I need to do is make the adjustments so that I'm flying both backyards, right? So now my aircraft is going to fly right along that fence line. I get to check all of those backyards, and then it'll automatically adjust and come down this line for those backyards. So this makes it super simple. Yeah, we could share that again for you, man. Perfect. Thank you, Michael. So this makes it really easy to focus on the camera, right? While your drone's autonomously flying those backyards. This is a really big game changer when in terms of trying to focus on certain taskings, not flying and watching gimbal and doing all the things, radio, right? This makes it super simple to be able to do that. While you're flying those, and I know that we talked about this a little bit earlier, right? If I am in camera mode and it's doing its thing, all I have to do to drop those markers is hit that down button again, and then I have a lot of different options. My personal favorite is targeted search or victim detected, right? So like if I'm flying this down the line, all I need to do is just grab the button and I can drop these anywhere. And then anybody that is flying in the mission will be able to see those markers on DroneSense on their remotes, as well as DroneSense OpsHub or Copilot, OpsHub Mobile, excuse me. It makes it super simple to be able to mark those things and say, hey, I need a ground team to go look at those things, right? And all they got to do is pull up the app and be like, yep, I know where I got to go. So it makes it super simple to be able to do all that.
Hey, Brandon, can you show how to curve the line search?
Oh,
Add another leg to curve it. So
yeah.
tap and hold on the north end plus.
Yeah. Yeah, I did it a little bit earlier on accident. There we are.
Oh, there you go. And then
yeah, so like let's curve that little guy. Let's come up here. Right. And then I can have it go this way now and check those lines. Right. So just showing you there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. The way that the aircraft would go is it would start at the black box. It would fly up here. It'd come down the streetway, come this way, up, and then back down. Right. Checking those backyards.
the thing about that, the other thing is search and rescue along the river.
Yep.
You can plan this out and run the riverbanks on either side and use that curve to kind of help move along. So it does get a little tricky when you start getting further out, but take some time and planning out.
Yeah.
But the one thing I do is I like to use an iPad.
Yep.
To do this instead of that little 7-inch screen, and then I can save it, and then we can load it once we get on scene.
Yeah, don't zoom out too far, which has been my problem. Yeah, so like to Mike's point, right, with the riverbanks, let's say I want to check the riverbank of my pond that I have behind my house, right? So like now I've made those legs, it's going to fly the line all the way along the bank. It's going to curve along the bank, come around the top of the bank, and then back down, right? So that way I know that I have searched this pond as best I can for that autistic juvenile that may be missing, things of that nature. Thank you, Mike. Again, add to plan and then get it rocking and rolling. Parallel search. Again, very similar to your 2D grids, where I would utilize a parallel grid search as such. It would be exactly how I have my my mock mission set here for different operational environments. So if I were to come over here, let's say I have an ops area Alpha Bravo Charlie for a search and rescue event, and I want to task out myself to search ops area Charlie. So now I can set this up to go and do that exactly the way I have it. I can task this out, and this is exactly what we did in like Asheville. This is what I've done for other search and rescue events here is we would task these out, tell the pilot, hey, trailer, I need you to go to ops area Charlie, do a parallel grid search looking for missing people, propane tanks, whatever. Sean, I need you to go to ops area Alpha. You have you're looking for very minute things, so I need you to do a 3D grid search. And then I can task Megan, go do a sector search up in ops area Bravo, right? And anybody flying in the mission, all they got to do is pull up, be like, yep, I know exactly where I got to go because it's built out in OpsHub. That's where I have to be. And then all they need to do is build out the ops plan and go. So it makes it super simple to be able to do that. Again, you can also make the adjustments if you want to rotate it on the screen here just by utilizing that circle. You can move it around in the center, or you can make it bigger or smaller for your op area. Okay. Same thing, you can make all the adjustments on distance between legs. Like, let's say that I want to search every backyard in here, right? Like, I can go through and make this smaller to be able to dial in those legs just as such, right? So then I can hit every single backyard, especially if you have a gridded out subdivision like mine kind of is. It makes it really easy to do that. We also have the ability, again, to take photos if you wanted to take photos while it's flying down there. We also can do a double grid. Ooh, I got real big. You could do double grid, or you could do a single grid. So this doubled the size of it, is all that did on both ends, as you can see. Or you can go in and single grid it out. And then again, add to plan, hit the play button, hit the go to button, and it'll send it. Questions on those at all? We're making good time, so if you have any questions, please ask. Sweet. Last but not least, we talked about this a little bit earlier again, but you have the ability to drop that grid map in here. And just like we built out for a crash crime scene reconstruction, you have a perfect grid specifically designed for a parallel grid search. If you want to take photos, you have the ability to do that as well. You could change gimbal angle, add to plan. What's also really nice, and this is not something that we've talked about yet, is let's say that it's just me out there and I want to go and do a parallel grid search on Ops Area Charlie, right? So I'm going to build this out. That's how far I want it to go. This is how high I want it to go. Get it a little bit better centered for my subdivision. There we are. So that one's set. I want to fly that one at 328 feet. I'm going to add to plan, right? So now that's there. Now, let's say that I want to do another action, right? So if I come back into actions, and let's say in Ops Area Bravo, let's say that one, I want to do a sector search because this one's a little bit weirder, right? So I can come up, I can make it big, search that, and you'll get the idea, add to plan. And then over here in Ops Area Alpha, let's get real crazy with it. That one, I want to map out the whole area, right? Click on the map. Oh, I got to zoom in. There we are. Now I can zoom back out. Make it big. Let's imagine this is a disaster-ridden area. A tornado, a hurricane came through. Right now I got it big. Come back into my settings. I can set my overlap. I want this to be a react. I can drop down my altitude to legal out here. There we are. Set my overlap to be a whole lot less because for disaster mapping, you don't need 80-70. You don't need 90-90. You're not trying to find shell casings and gouge marks in roadways. You're trying to find out as the house is up or down, right? Add to plan. So now you'll notice down here, I have those three sections. I got parallel grid search, I have sector search, I have survey. And what will happen is the drone will fly those missions. It'll start out with number 1. It'll hit that parallel grid search. Once it's done, it'll go and do the sector search. Once it's done, it'll come over here. Now that can be multiple different things, right? You could build out 20 different sector searches for a subdivision or a wooded area, mountain, whatever, and you'll have the ability to build that out, and you can tell it to go and do the things. You also can tell it to do a hover when it's done or return to home, right? So the total plan for this is 170 minutes. I better bring batteries, right? At least 5 sets. But just to show you, you don't have to do one, bring it back, build out a new flight plan, set it up, send it again, right? You can build it out and stack it, and then add all those to plan, hit play, go now, and it'll go do its thing.
Brandon, do you talk about terrain following?
I have not yet. No, we just talked about what each one of those missions are in function. So feel free, please.
Okay. So if you go back to actions for me.
Yep.
On your controller.
Yep.
So Waypoint, Orbit, and Survey currently are not terrain following. Survey will be at some point. But all of the other searches, search, line search, parallel search, and grid search will do terrain following. So say you're up in, like we were in Asheville, in mountainous terrain, and you've got a lot of terrain variations. It will maintain the altitude that you set it at. So if you set the altitude to 150 feet AGL, it's going to maintain that altitude as it goes. So even though you're going up a mountain valley in the foothills, it'll still maintain that 150 feet AGL. Where right now, if you're doing a survey in the mountains, you set it at 250 feet, it'll start running a search. But if the terrain changes, it won't adjust. So.
Yeah, John, you can't, and thank you, Mike. So John asked, can you build that out, the 3 search areas? Can you assign those to 3 different people to do? So the way that I used to do that, right, is I would go into the parallel search. You can come in and edit it. And if you'll notice, we have parallel search. So like what I can do is I can come in and I can name it, right? Paraland Team 1. Check it. Add the plan, and now we'll have that that plan built out specifically for them, so they know if I save it, it'll be assigned to that individual, right? So you can go in flight plan again, save it for Paraland Team 1 if you don't want them to do multiple things. It makes it super simple to be able to do that. What's also really nice is one of the ways that we did the tasking is each morning, especially for a disaster response, we would build out those taskings in the pre-op briefing. We would tell you, hey, trailer, you got this tasking. You need to go do these missions, and they would be built out on here, just like I have on my ops plan here for the park. Is another really good example of that. We would tell them you have to go map out area Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie over at Independence Park. And then, Sean, I need you to go do a pre-op brief for a SWAT operation up here in this area for ops area Alpha Bravo Charlie, right? Or you can name these anything you want. It could be Paraland Team, South Dakota Sheriff's Office team. Like all of that is available to you there. But you can name all kinds of stuff. You can name groups. You can name plans. You can name searches. All of that is in there for you. Great question, Joe. So the terrain following is relatively new, but it's important to note that it's not with survey. It's with the search and rescue right now. We are building it out to do terrain following while mapping, which during Asheville, we didn't have that capability back then. We didn't have any search and rescue tactics. And in for search and rescue, we have the terrain following, but in the mapping for survey, we do not yet.
The other thing, Brandon, you want to talk about gimbal angles for search and rescue?
I did. We talked about that when I went through them.
All right, cool.
Keeping me honest, I appreciate it.
Well, in Florida, because we have so much vegetation, I found that 35 works great for here. It just depends on your environment as well.
Absolutely, yeah, you're dead on. It does it's highly dependent on your environment that you're going to be flying in. One thing I don't have, Mike, that you may be able to help me out on real fast. I don't have the QR code for the search for the basic trainings. Do you happen to have that, or can point me to where that is so that these guys can scan that?
It'll be done automatically from the.
Okay. Sweet.
Whoever's there. You have the survey in the course survey?
No, I don't have those. That's the only things I don't have. Yeah.
I can throw that up.
My man. Thank you. While Mike brings that up, guys, does anybody have any other questions? Like, y'all have been fantastic in asking the questions. That's what makes these fun. And so it also helps everybody learn. There is no dumb question. I promise I've had people try to challenge that over many years, but I haven't had a dumb question yet. So more than happy to field any other questions that you may have while you're scanning the QR code and doing the feedback as well. Thanks, Mike.
No problem.
Can you send me that PowerPoint? I don't know that I have it.
Yep. I'll leave that up there for about another 30 seconds.
And it is pouring here again. Wish I had mowed. All right, guys. Well, that concludes. I'm going to hang on and answer questions for a little bit, but off topic, but is there any plans to add augmented reality to the program? Absolutely. I have seen mock-ups of those. I have seen demos of those. We are very close to being able to roll those out. We do have some augmented reality available to you today. It does require you to have the geospatial add-on so that you can get access to those. But we absolutely are bringing those in. The things we're looking to bring in are street views, address points, map layer markers, and a couple of other things. So 100% that is on our roadmap. We're actively building that out to make sure that it's available to everybody. Great question, Frank. I believe the timeline for the M4T is in May, is the current timeline for that. I'll double check on that, Jeff. But last I heard, the current roadmap is for May. Anytime, bub.
Michael, when I'm looking, the recommendations for the gimbal angles?
Is there a recommendation for gimbal angles for different altitudes anywhere when taking photos, especially? I know it defaults at you to adjust, but I wasn't sure if there was more. So there's the default gimbal angle is going to be highly contingent on the aircraft you're flying, the payload you're flying, and the environment in which you're flying in. So like prime example of that, if I'm flying the P1 camera on the M30 on the M300 or the M350, my gimbal angle is going to be very different based off of what altitude I'm flying because of the focal length of that payload. Okay, so there's going to be some adjustments you're going to have. There's not a set science for specific gimbal angles after specific altitudes because it's highly contingent based off of environment as well as payloads that you're going to be flying in. So the best thing that I can recommend to you is when you're doing your pre-op for your mapping mission, get the drone at the altitude you want to fly, figure out what is the best optimized gimbal angle for your aircraft and environment. Notate that, build out your mapping mission with the altitude and the angle that you want, and then send it after that. Yeah, I'd be happy to put that contact card up for you again. There you are. Great questions, guys. Great feedback. This has been a fun one.
And Brandon loves it when you give his contact out to everybody.
My contact information is everybody. You haven't been to enough of my conferences.
Or bathroom walls.
Shoot, my contact information's on YouTube. You can find me everywhere. All right, guys. With that, that's time. Don't hesitate to reach out. Please attend all the different meetings. We do have working group meetings as well. So get with your account managers, get with your customer success managers, and make sure that you register for those working groups because that's where you get to see the cutting edge stuff that we're releasing. It's where you get to give your input as to what we need to fix and how to build things. So please attend the working groups, both for DroneSense Remote as well as DroneSense Platform. Please attend all the future trainings, and I'm looking forward to working with you all a whole lot more in the very near future. Thank you all so much for attending. Fly safe, be safe, and we'll see you on the next one.